Chapter 1. Early Life, Education, and Political Ascent. Eugenia Solomonovna Ginzburg was born on December 20, December 7 according to the Julian calendar, 1904, in Moscow, into a Jewish family. Her father, Solomon Natanovich Ginzburg, worked as a pharmacist, and her mother, Rebecca Markovna, was a homemaker. In 1909, when Eugenia was still a young child, the family moved to Kazan, an important cultural and educational center in the Russian Empire. She grew up during a period of intense political upheaval, witnessing the First World War, the revolutions of 1917, and the ensuing Russian Civil War. In 1920, she enrolled in Kazan State University, initially studying social sciences before moving into pedagogy. Her intellectual curiosity and dedication to Marxist-Leninist ideals brought her closer to Communist Party structures, and she soon became deeply involved in political education and propaganda. In the 1920s she married for the first time to Dr. Dmitry Fedorov, with whom she had her first son, Alexei, in 1926. After a divorce, she married again in 1930 to Pavel Vasilievich Aksonev, a loyal and ambitious Communist Party official who later served as mayor of Kazan and head of the Tatarskaya Autonomous Soviet Socialist Republic's Regional Party Committee. The marriage produced her second son, Vasily, in 1932. By the early 1930s, Ginzburg was a respected associate professor in the Department of Party History at Kazan State University, specializing in Leninist theory. She published political articles, gave lectures, and was recognized as a committed and disciplined party member. Her career was advancing rapidly. She appeared to be a model Soviet intellectual woman, loyal to the cause, ideologically firm, and an active builder of socialism. Yet this very commitment would become the foundation of her tragedy during the era of Stalin's Great Purge. Chapter 2. The Arrest and the Beginning of the Whirlwind. The mid-1930s brought an increasingly oppressive political climate. The assassination of Sergei Kirov in December 1934 triggered a wave of arrests and purges within the Communist Party, targeting alleged Trotskyists and enemies of the people. In 1935, Ginzburg's department came under scrutiny due to her professional association with Professor Nikolai Elvin, accused of harboring Trotskyist sympathies. She defended him and refused to denounce him publicly, a position that made her vulnerable. On February 8, 1937, she was expelled from the party for political unreliability and alleged participation in counter-revolutionary Trotskyist activities. Just 1 week later, on February 15, she was arrested by the NKVD, the Soviet secret police. Her trial was perfunctory, lasting mere minutes before the military collegium of the Supreme Court found her guilty and sentenced her to 10 years in a labor camp. In her memoirs she recalled the surreal calm she felt upon hearing that it was not a death sentence, knowing full well that survival in the Gulag was uncertain at best. Soon after her arrest, her husband was also detained and sentenced to 15 years. She would never see him again. Her elder son Alexei, left behind in Kazan, would perish during the siege of Leningrad. Her younger son, Vasily, would be sent to live with relatives and grow up largely without her. Chapter 3. Prison and the Crushing Machine of the Gulag. Eugenia's first months in custody were spent in the infamous Lefortovo and Butyrka prisons in Moscow, after which she was sent to Yaroslavl. There she endured 2 years in solitary confinement in a small cell measuring only 5 paces by 3. The walls were painted in the standard prison colors, brownish-red halfway up and dirty white above. She memorized every bump, crack, and scratch in the stone floor. Each day she was taken out of the cell only 3 times, morning and evening to the washroom, and once for a short period of exercise. These years were marked by extreme sensory deprivation, the absence of human contact, and a slow erosion of physical strength. In 1939 she was transported east to the Soviet Far East, ultimately to the Kolyma region, one of the most notorious zones of the Gulag system. Known as the Pole of Cold and Road of Bones, Kolyma was infamous for its gold mines, brutal climate, and high mortality rate. Prisoners were forced to work in extreme sub-zero temperatures, often without adequate food, clothing, or medical care. Initially assigned to common labor, cutting timber, hauling heavy loads, or mowing in marshy fields, she soon learned to pace herself to conserve energy. Wet, freezing, and exhausted, she and her fellow prisoners struggled to meet work quotas. The constant failure to fulfill norms led to reduced food rations, creating a vicious cycle of hunger and weakness. She witnessed many fellow prisoners collapse and die from exhaustion, malnutrition, or exposure. Chapter 4: Solidarity, Love, and Survival. Despite the inhuman conditions, Ginzburg's survival owed much to acts of solidarity and unexpected kindness. In the camp hospital she met Dr. Anton Walter, a German physician also imprisoned under false charges. Walter, moved by her frailty, kept her in the infirmary for more than a month to allow her to recover from the exhausting transport. He brought her high-calorie food from his own meager rations and shielded her from heavy labor whenever possible. Over time, their bond deepened, and they eventually married while still in exile. Working as his assistant in the infirmary, she was able to avoid the most dangerous forms of labor, tend to other prisoners, and regain a degree of strength. Solidarity among prisoners was not limited to personal relationships. Women in the camp supported each other by sharing food, clothing, and information, and by protecting the more vulnerable from abuse by guards or other inmates. Ginzburg's ability to memorize and recite poetry, works by Pushkin, Bloch, Nekrasov, and her own compositions, became a source of comfort, a way to preserve cultural identity and mental resilience. Chapter 5: Release, Exile, and Rehabilitation. In 1947, after serving her full 10-year sentence, Ginzburg was released from the camp but ordered to remain in internal exile in Magadan, the administrative center of Kolyma. She began working as a schoolteacher and was able to send for her younger son, Vasily, after 12 years of separation. The reunion was bittersweet. Her elder son was dead, and her husband had perished in the camps. In 1950 she was arrested again and exiled to Krasnoyarsk, later being returned to Kolyma, where she remained until Stalin's death in 1953. After repeated petitions, she was formally rehabilitated on June 25, 1955, with the authorities admitting there had been no criminal case against her. She returned to Moscow, resumed work as a journalist, and began writing her memoirs. Her book, Journey into the Whirlwind, completed in secret and smuggled abroad, was published in 1967 in Italian and later translated into many languages. A sequel, Within the Whirlwind, continued her story and was published posthumously in 1982. Chapter 6: Legacy and Final Years. Eugenia Ginzburg lived her final years in Moscow, maintaining contact with other former political prisoners and continuing to write, though Soviet censorship prevented publication of her memoirs at home. Her son Vasily Aksonev became a prominent novelist and dissident, eventually emigrating to the West. Ginzburg died on May 25, 1977, at the age of 72. Today she is remembered as one of the most important memoirists of the Stalinist terror. Her works are valued both as historical testimony and as literature, combining precise observation with moral clarity and poetic depth. They stand alongside the writings of Alexander Solzhenitsyn and Nadezhda Mandelstam as key texts documenting the Gulag experience, ensuring that the voices of the millions who suffered will not be forgotten. Thanks everyone for watching. Please consider subscribing to the channel and see you soon.